In the previous class, we had started with hardware software co-design and program modeling. In that, we have seen different issues or fundamental issues in hardware software co-design. And the first issue was selecting the model. So there are different models or different computational models in embedded system design, like data flow graph model, controlled data flow graph model, state machine model, which includes finite state machine model, then sequential program model, and concurrent or communicating process model, and object oriented model. Apart from this, there is also another thing called UML, that is Unified Modeling Language, that is out of the scope of your syllabus. So we will restrict our studies to these 6 computational models in embedded system design. So we will go through these one by one. The first one is data flow graph model. The data flow graph model, it is also called data flow diagram model. In short, we call it DFG. It stands for data flow graph model. This translates the data processing requirements into a data flow graph. So the data processing requirements will be captured from the system requirements, and we translate that into a data flow graph, like how the data flows, like a flow chart or a flow diagram. So it is a data-driven model in which the program execution is determined by data. Okay, the execution is driven by the data. So it's called data-driven model. So this emphasizes on the data and operations on the data, which transforms the input data to output data. So data will be taken as the input, some operations will be performed on them, and output is obtained. Output data is obtained. So we draw a flow diagram or a flow chart for this. That becomes the data flow graph model. So for example, some DSP applications, so embedded applications which are computational intensive and data driven are modeled using the DFG model, where more computations are there or more calculations are there. Okay, for such applications, we can use this DFG model. One example is the DSP applications, where some inputs are taken, some processing is done on that, and outputs are obtained. So this can be achieved using DFG or data flow graph model. So it's a visual model wherein you can draw that particular model in which the operation on the data or the process, the operation on data is called the process. It is represented using a block, normally a circle, and the data flow, the flow of the data is represented using arrow mark. Okay, so arrow mark with a particular direction. So an inward arrow, so all the processes or operation on the data, they are represented using circles. Okay, the inward arrow to the process represents input data, and outward arrow represents output data. For example, we will if you take an example and see, it will be very clear. It is a simple one. So if you want to do this particular operation, like you want to take x as a variable which is equal to a plus b. A and b are two input variables. If you add them together, you get another variable x. Then if you use this x and perform operation on that x minus c, then that you are assigning to another variable y. So you can represent this using data flow graph model like this. So this plus indicates an operation, minus indicates another operation. So each operation is indicated by a node or a block. Okay, so this is the data flow node, which is addition. Here you are giving two inputs a and b, and the arrow mark indicates it is inward into the node. That's why these are the inputs. Very simple to understand. Then if you add a and b, whatever you get, that is the output, and that is x. That's why we have x is equal to a plus b. Then you have another operation, that is subtraction, that is indicated using another node. Okay, so that is y is the output of this. Y is equal to x minus c. So x is obtained from as the output of this operation. It is taken as input to the next operation, and c is the third input. Okay, so if you are subtracting x minus c, you will get the output y. So it is as simple as this. So if the things are as simple as this, that means which involves only some computations or operations on particular input data, and we obtain output data, we can represent them simply as in the case of a data flow graph model, that is DFG model. So here in a data flow graph model, a data path is the data flow path from input to output. So this is called the data path from the input to output. Whatever the path we have, that is called the data path. That means which includes the inputs and the operation on them. So a DFG model, it is said to be acyclic if it doesn't contain multiple values for the input variable and multiple output values for a given set of inputs. Okay, so the feedback inputs, events, etc. are example of non-acyclic inputs. Suppose this input is fed back to the output. If output is fed back to the input, then they are called cyclic or non-acyclic. So this kind of a graph, where outputs are not given back to the inputs, they are called acyclic data flow graph. It doesn't contain multiple value for input variable and multiple output values for a given set of inputs. So if at all there is a feedback in the path, that becomes a non-acyclic input. So this data flow graph model translates the program as a single sequential process execution. So this will be a single sequential process execution. That means one after the other it will be calculated. See, for example, if you want y, you will need x. So x has to be calculated first. Okay, a plus b will give you x, then x minus c will give you y. So it's a sequential process execution. So next kind of model we have is control data flow graph model or control data flow diagram model. So in the previous one, that is DFG, it is a data driven model in which execution is controlled by data. Only data inputs are given, you get the output data. It does not involve any control operations. We have not checked the value of anything here. We have directly taken the data and processed it. There are no conditional loops or no conditions applied, right? But if there are some conditions applied, then we call it control data flow graph model. Okay, here it is CDFG. It is used for modeling applications involving conditional program execution. That means you check some parameters and you control it. Okay, so that is called conditional program execution. So this contains both data operations as well as control operations. It uses data flow graph model as element and conditional as decision makers. Decision makers means you compare it. If it is equal to 0, then some operation. If it is equal to 1, then some other operation. If it is true, one particular operation. If it is false, some other operation. If it is greater than some threshold, then some operation. If it is below some threshold, then some other operation. If you take some user inputs, if the user presses one particular button, then it has to do one particular operation. If he presses some other button, then some other operation. So there, you are checking some condition. So in such cases, you go for control data flow graph modeling. So it contains both data flow nodes and decision nodes, whereas data flow graph contains only the data flow nodes. You can see there is only data flow nodes. There are no control nodes or the decision nodes, whereas control data flow graph has both data flow nodes as well as decision nodes. Okay, this is one example. If you want to implement a particular thing, like you are checking some flag. If flag is equal to 1, you want to perform one particular operation, x is equal to a plus b. Else you want to perform another operation, y is equal to a minus b. Okay, so how to do this? You are checking some flag. There is some control variable flag. So if flag is equal to 1, you are performing addition and assigning that to a variable x. If flag is equal to 0, then you are performing a minus b and assigning that to a variable y. Okay, so there is a decision making process. You are comparing the flag with the particular value and deciding what to do. Okay, so there there is some control node or a decision node which is represented using a diamond shape, a diamond block. Okay, so this is the decision making element in a normal flowchart based design. So CDFG, it translates the requirement which is modeled to a concurrent process model. So it is a concurrent processing model compared to the previous one, which is a sequential process model. The decision on which process is to be executed is determined by the control node. This is called the control node. This is the control node, which is in diamond shape. The data flow nodes are drawn using the circles, as you can see. Okay, so this performs the decision. So it will first check the flag. If flag is 1, okay, then there are two paths. Either it can be true or it can be false. If it is true, T indicates it is true. If it is true, what has to be performed? If flag is 1, then x is equal to a plus b. Okay, so if flag is 1, if it is true, then you get the output as x. X is equal to a plus b. If flag is equal to 1, if you are checking this, and if the result is false, that means if flag is not 1, then if it is false, then another operation you have to perform, that is y is equal to a minus b. So it is subtraction. If it is true, then perform addition and assign it to x. If it is false, then perform subtraction and assign it to y. This is one example of a controlled data flow graph model wherein you perform some decision, you make some decision by checking for some condition. Here the condition is whether the flag is equal to 1. If it is true, then one operation. If it is false, then some other operation. So in the real world examples, there are many applications you can take wherein there are some user inputs you consider. If at all user gives one input, then one particular operation, then some other input, then other operation. In all such cases, we can go for control data flow graph model. So one example is it can be used for modeling the embedded application using CDFG is for capturing and saving of the image to a format set by the user in a digital still camera. In a digital camera, there are you can capture the image and save the image in different formats like JPEG, PNG, and different formats like TIFF, BMP, and other things. So those formats are set by the user. If the user selects one particular option, okay, or by default one particular option will be selected. If it is done, then the image will be captured and saved to that particular format. If the user selects some other one, then it will be processed and done to that particular format. Okay, whatever the option user selects, to that particular format, the image will be stored. Here everything is data driven. The analog front end in the camera, it converts the CCD sensor generated analog signal to digital signal. CCD sensor is one sensor present in digital cameras where light captured, it is converted to electrical signal. That it CCD stands for charge coupled device. So those are present in the cameras. So they generate analog signals, so they have to be converted to digital. Then the data from ADC, that is analog to digital converter, it is stored to a frame buffer for the use of a media processor. This media processor will perform the processing operations and convert that to a particular format. Okay, so this media processor, it performs various operations like auto correction, white balance adjusting, and those things for better image quality. The decision on in which format the image has to be stored is controlled by the camera settings, and it is configured by the user. So based on what configurations we have given in that particular format, the processing happens and image will be stored. Different formats are JPEG, PNG, TIFF, BMP, and other things, right? So that's one example where you can use control data flow graph model. Next kind of model we have is a state machine model. State machine model is where there are different states. You can see there are different states in your particular application. It is used for modeling reactive or event driven embedded systems whose processing behavior are dependent on state transitions. So there are different states, and there is transition from one state to the other depending on certain event that is happening. Okay, so the embedded systems used in the control applications or industrial applications are examples for event driven systems, where if certain event happens, some task has to be done. Okay, those are applications where we can use this state machine model. So there are the different system behaviors. This model, this state machine model, it describes the system behavior with different things like states, events, actions, and transitions. So what do you mean by state? The present state. State means it is the current situation. So whether it is on, whether it is off, or whether it is waiting. So such kind of things. Okay. So it is a representation of a current situation. Depending on the scenario, there are different states, can be different things. We will look at it when we come to certain examples. It gives an idea of what the present situation is or the current situation is. Then event, it is an input to the state. Okay, it is an input to the state. If certain event happens, then the state will be moving from one state to the other. The system will be changing from one state to the other. The change from one state to the other is called state transition. Okay, change from one state to the other is called state transition. And when the state transition happens, whenever an event happens, the event acts as stimuli for state transition. Okay, something that triggers the change in the state, that is called an event. And what is transition? Transition is the change from one state to the other. That's what transition is, the movement from one state to the other. Then action is an activity that is to be performed by the state machine. Okay, so what it has to do, that is called the action that is performed by the state machine. So we can understand this better if you take an example. Let us take one example. One particular model, one particular type of state machine model is a finite state machine model, or FSM, which is popular. Here the number of states are defined, or they are finite. Finite means you can count them. Okay, so the system is described using a finite number of possible states. That is called a finite state machine model. So using this model, if you want to explain, or if you take one example, you can take an example of a seat belt warning system in automobiles. So we will consider the design of an embedded system for driver or passengers seat belt warning in an automotive using the FSM model. So what does the seat belt warning system do? So whenever driver goes and sits in the vehicle, okay, then he will first turn on the vehicle. That is called the vehicle ignition. He will first turn on. So when the vehicle ignition is turned on, he has to first fasten the seat belt. That means he has to first put on the seat belt within 10 seconds. So that is the time you are mentioning. Okay, when the driver goes and sits, actually first he has to put the seat belt and then turn on. If he has forgotten to put the seat belt, at least after turning on within 10 seconds, he has to put on the seat belt. If the seat belt is not fastened within 10 seconds of turning on the engine, then it has to generate an alarm. And that alarm should last for 5 seconds. That alarm will indicate the driver or the passenger that the seat belt has not been fastened. You have to fasten it. That means you have to tie it. And that alarm will be for 5 seconds. Now, once the alarm is turned on, when should it go off? It can go off for different conditions. One is if the alarm is expiring. If the alarm expires means after 5 seconds of alarm. Okay, after 5 seconds of alarm, the alarm will stop. Okay, and again check whether the driver has put on the seat belt. If not, it will again wait for 10 seconds and again it will start the alarm, and again it will run for 5 seconds and again it will stop. Okay, in between the 5 seconds, if the driver puts on the seat belt, then the alarm should stop before 5 seconds. Okay, before 5 seconds, if the driver puts on the seat belt, then also the alarm should stop. And there is another condition when the alarm can stop, when the driver turns off the engine, or when the ignition is turned off. If it turns off the engine of the car, then again the alarm should go off, whichever happens first. So these are the requirements. Okay, when the vehicle ignition is turned on and the seat belt is not fastened within 10 seconds of ignition on, the system generates an alarm signal for 5 seconds. The alarm is turned off when the alarm time expires, that is 5 seconds expires, or if the driver or passenger fastens the belt, or if the ignition switch is turned off, whichever happens first. I hope it is clear. So depending on these requirements, we have to first make the states. What can be the possible states? So there are 3 states you can form based on these requirements. One is the alarm off. Initially the alarm will be off. Then the waiting state, that is waiting for the driver to put on the seat belt, that is for 10 seconds it will be waiting state. Then if it is still not put on, if it's still not fastened, then turn on the alarm, that is alarm on. So these are the 3 states: alarm off, waiting, and alarm on. Okay, then to trigger the transition between these states, there are different events that can happen, right? The first is ignition key on. That means the driver is coming inside and turning on the engine, that is ignition key on. Then ignition key off. Then timer expire. If the timer expires, that is of the 10 seconds time, timer expire. Then alarm time expire. Alarm time expire is for 5 seconds. Then seat belt on. If the driver puts on the seat belt, then that is seat belt on. So using these states and events, you can draw the FSM model. So this is a FSM model, or finite state machine model, for automatic seat belt warning system. So these are the different states. One is alarm off, then there is a waiting state, and then there is alarm on. 3 states. You are drawing that using 3 circles. Okay, then try to understand this. Initially, the alarm will be off. When the driver comes in and turns on the ignition, then that means when the ignition key on happens, there is a straight transition from alarm off to waiting state. Okay, when the driver turns on the key, there is a state transition. This arrow mark indicates that particular event, okay, or the transition from alarm off to waiting state. Waiting state means it will wait for that 10 seconds. Okay, in 10 seconds, within 10 seconds, if the ignition key is turned off, if the ignition key is turned off, then again it will go back to alarm off state. Okay, or if the driver puts on the seat belt, again it will go back to alarm off state. That means alarm has not yet turned on. Okay, if the driver puts on seat belt within 10 seconds, alarm will not turn on, it will go back to alarm off state. Okay, but if for 10 seconds the driver has still not put on the seat belt or ignition key is still on, then the timer will expire. That means after 10 seconds it will go to alarm on state. In alarm on state, the alarm will be on. That means it will be making sound for 5 seconds. Okay, so how do you decide whether for what time it will be alarm will be on? Again, there are some events which can trigger. If the alarm time expires, that is one event. That means after 5 seconds, again the alarm will go to alarm off state, right? Then, or else if the seat belt is on, that means if the seat belt is put on, fastened, then the alarm will go to alarm off state. Or if the ignition key is turned off, then also the alarm will go to alarm off state. So this is the way we can draw the state diagram or FSM model for automatic seatbelt warning system. So initially it will be off. Then when the ignition key is turned on, it will go to the waiting state. In between, if it turns off, ignition key is off, it will go to alarm off state. In between, if you put on the seat belt, again it will go to alarm off state. But for 10 seconds, if it is on and you are not fastened the seat belt, it will go to alarm on state. The timer will expire, it will go to alarm on state. Okay, there again, if the seat belt is on in between, it will go to alarm off state. Or if ignition key is off in between, again it will go to alarm off state. But if nothing happens, if none of these happens, then the timer will expire for 5 seconds. The alarm will be on, and then it will go to alarm off state. So this is the way we have the FSM model for automatic seatbelt warning system. Then for alarm also there are different states. Now this is the same explanation of whatever we have. The ignition key on event, it triggers the 10-second timer and transitions the state to waiting. Okay, whenever ignition key on happens, state transition happens from alarm off to waiting state. If a seat belt on or ignition key off event occurs during the wait state, that state transitions into alarm off. If these two happens, then there is a state transition from waiting to alarm off. When the wait timer expires in the waiting state, the event timer expire is generated, and this will transition the state to alarm on from waiting state in this case. Now when it is an alarm on, it will continue until a seat belt or a ignition key off or alarm time expire, whichever occurs first. If any of these three happens, then it will go to alarm off state. Okay, the occurrence of any of these transitions the state to alarm off. The wait state is implemented using a timer. This waiting state, for this waiting state, again there is a timer. So the timer also has certain set of states and events for state transitions. Again, you can draw an FSM model for the timer. Okay, here there are three different states for timer. You can call them as idle state, ready state, and running state. Right? Idle state means it will be idle. Timer is not running. Timer is not running. Whenever you load the timer, it will move from idle to ready state. There is a state transition from idle to ready state. Ready means the timer is loaded. Once you start, the timer starts running. Okay, so what happens is in idle state, you are loading the timer, then it will go to ready state. So what is the action that is performed when you are going to ready state is the timer count will be the new count. New count means if it is 10 seconds, then 10 seconds. If it is 5 seconds, then 5 seconds, right? Then when you are in ready state, if you start the timer, then it will go to the running state. If you start the timer, then it will go to the running state. When you start the timer, it will start decrementing the count. Okay, like 10, 9, 8, 7. It will keep counting till it becomes 0. So it will start decrementing the count, and that means it is in the running state. Once it is in the running state, it will stop when the timer will expire, or you are stopping the timer. Okay, if you stop the timer or when the timer expires, it will go back to the idle state. Okay, then what happens? The timeout flag or timeout interrupt will be set. Okay, that is the action. That is the action that is performed, and you are going back to the idle state. So this is the way you can draw the FSM model for the timer also. Timer also has 3 states: idle, ready, and running. Depending on what events happen, the state transitions happen from one to another. The timer state can either be one of these: idle, ready, or running. During the normal condition, when it is not running, it will be in idle state. So when the timer is set to be in ready state, it is set to be in ready state when timer is loaded with a particular count. Okay, and corresponding to the required time delay. Corresponding to the time delay, the count will be different, right? The timer remains in the ready state until a start timer event occurs. It changes to running state from the ready state on receiving a start timer event, and remains in the running state until the timer count expires or a stop timer event occurs. The timer state changes to idle from running on receiving a stop timer or timer expire event. Okay, so that's about the timers FSM model. So there is another example you can take, or you can try this. You can take it as a homework today. You have to design an automatic tea or coffee vending machine based on FSM model for the following requirements. So the requirements are also given. Okay, so you know what is a tea or coffee vending machine? That means there will be a machine. You put a coin into that and select whether you want tea or coffee. If you press tea, 1 cup tea should come. If you press coffee, 1 cup coffee should come. If you press cancel, you should get your 5 rupee back. So that is the thing we want. The tea or coffee vending, it is initiated by the user inserting a 5 rupee coin. After inserting the coin, the user can select either coffee or tea, or press cancel to cancel the order and take back the coin. So this is a requirement. All of you please make a note of this. So for this particular model, for this particular requirement, you have to design an FSM model. So first you should note down or capture what are the different states, then capture what are the events, or select what are the events. Depending on those particular events, the state transition happens. Okay, so I want all of you to come up with a solution for this, that is to design an automatic tea or coffee vending machine based on FSM model.